We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.
Social justice, power, social justice.
Good evening to our friends on the East Coast. Good afternoon to our friends on the West. And good in-between time to our friends in the in-between spaces, which we all find ourselves more and more these days. But not tonight. Tonight we have a super special guest for y'all. Billy Eichner is here on the Social Justice Power Hour. Welcome to the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice virtual headquarters. My name is Robt Seda-Schreiber. I'm the chief activist here. I'm also your host for the evening, as I have been for over 200 episodes. Gosh, it's been a crazy time. I am so thrilled to have our guest tonight. I'm so thrilled that we've shared community so many times over the past 9 months. We've made a baby, a social justice baby. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a lot of things coming up, and before we get to Billy, I know we're all excited to have him on the show and have an incredibly meaningful conversation. I do want to tell you, tomorrow night we have our friend Jill Sobule back. Jill has come out from the other side of her brain surgery. We're going to have her post-brain surgery shindig. We're going to have some amazing folks coming at you. Liz Winstead's going to be with us. Dar Williams is going to be with us. Tony Trishka is going to be with us. A whole bunch of folks. Wayne Kramer is going to be with us. So come tomorrow night. Let's celebrate our friend Jill Sobule, help her recuperate, help her refresh and rejuvenate. She's an incredible friend to the center, an incredible person, two-hit wonder, and just a beautiful person in and of herself. And then coming up on the show, we have Frederick Joseph, author of The Black Friend on Being a Better White Person. Book came out 2 weeks ago. Couldn't be a better time to read this book. Pete Souza, official White House photographer under 2 different presidents, Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama. Thrilled to have his insight into the inner workings of the White House, and he's going to share some of his favorite photographs from probably Barack Obama more than Ronald Reagan, but maybe a little Reagan too. Franklin Leonard, creator of The Blacklist. Gary Trudeau. Doonesbury is 50 years old. We're thrilled he's going to be with us. It's the only full-length interview he's doing on the 50th anniversary of Doonesbury. We are over the moon to have Gary come and talk with us. Anoa Changa, speaking of the Georgia Senate runoffs, no one better, boots on the ground for years in the community, electoral justice reporter. You know she was on the night before Election Day in November. She's coming back to us the night before the Georgia runoffs. No one better to give us the skinny of what's going on, what we need to look out for, what that's going to mean that night. And we are so incredibly honored she's joining us. I'm sure her dance card is so fully punched for that day and that evening. So a good friend of ours to come back. And then finally, I want you all to know, we know that this has been a tough year. We know it's been a tough season. And although we usually open up our center doors in Princeton, New Jersey, and on Christmas Day, we have hundreds of folks gather for a safe space, for somewhere you come to be with chosen family, to be with your family. We are your family, you are your community, and we know we can't do that this year. We're heartbroken about not doing this year, but we will be coming at you here virtually on the Power Hour on Wednesday, December 23rd, giving you the very meaning of the season. A holiday safe space spectacular. We have videos coming in already from all sorts of folks from across the nation, from across the world. We just got some of the original stars from Mamma Mia on Broadway, just sent us in minutes before the show. We're going to fully announce everyone, but it's going to be a beautiful night. And forget about what extraordinary guest stars we may have, which we will. It's all about community. It's all about us being together. That's what the Power Hour is always about. So come Wednesday and share some time with your family. And then on Christmas Day, we'll be here as well for you. We're going to have a holiday sing-along with renowned folk musician David Brzezinski. So bring your sheet music. We're going to sing together. We're going to be together. We're going to make sure that we all feel loved and respected the way we need to, not only during the holidays, but every day, but especially the holidays. So we are here for you at the Power Hour. And speaking of being here for you, our guest tonight, my gosh, Billy Eichner is the creator and eponymous star of worldwide cultural phenomenon Billy on the Street, as well as many delightful star turns in incredibly diverse projects such as Parks and Recreation, the live-action Lion King, Bob's Burgers, American Horror Story, and a personal favorite of mine, Difficult People, among many, many, many other wonderful things you should definitely be checking out on your TV machine. He also recently gave great kindness to a relatively unknown singer named Mariah Carey by starring in her holiday special. I think given Billy's support, she's really going to go places. He's also a fierce political activist, going far beyond the usual performative activism of many celebrities by using his, shall we say, strong and robust voice in support of many important issues, but also taking great care to amplify others as well. Most recently, he has been focusing his spirit and energy toward the all-important Georgia Senate runoff, for which he has just returned, literally just returned from phone banking his own self. So without further ado, please welcome to the Social Justice Power Hour, writer, director, actor, comedian, activist, and of course, elf, Billy Eichner, everybody. Billy, thank you so much for being with us, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that very kind, very generous introduction.
Very honest. It's just nothing but the freaking truth. You are one of the few folks out there that aren't just tweeting, aren't just thinking, oh, if I shout it out, that's the work I need to do. You were literally phone banking today your own self. And that's putting yourself, your boots in the ground, you're spitting the game, because I've seen you talk. And so what's that like? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the concrete aspect of that. What's that like, phone banking? Of course it's virtually now, but when you call someone, how long does it take them to register it's you, and what kind of interactions are those?
Well, I don't say who I am. I say, hello, it's Billy calling for, today I kicked off a phone bank event that was run by the Young Democrat Club at Emory University in Decatur, Georgia. And they reached out to me and said that they've been phone banking, these amazing college kids at Emory in the middle of a horrible year, when they expected to go to this big, great school they got into and have the time of their lives. And they're all stuck at home, virtually learning, and very little, if any, socializing. And yet in the midst of all of that, they're taking time out of their schedule. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. They're taking time out of their schedule to make calls to voters in Georgia to help get out the vote. And I was very touched by that they're doing that. And they reached out to me to see if I would join and give a little pep talk at the beginning. And I've done a lot of that. I did a lot of it before Election Day in November. And I did things like that with other college students. And I'm just so impressed by them, because I always paid attention to what was happening in the world, but I wasn't terribly politically active 20 years ago when I was in college, and these kids are just so engaged. And so I'm happy to help. And in terms of the actual phone banking, a lot of people get nervous. I obviously am an actor, performer. I literally run up to strangers on the street and start talking to them. And so I'm not as intimidated as other people. But for the average person, I think maybe they get a little scared. But you quickly see, and if you've never done it before, we have 19 days, I believe, until Election Day in Georgia, and early voting is already happening. So if you've never phone banked before, most of us are stuck at home, or we should be, for the holidays, and that's too bad. But a silver lining is that you can actually help out virtually and help win these Georgia races by phone banking. And even if it sounds nerve-wracking to you, there's a script. We do a little training session at the top of every virtual phone bank. You're on with hundreds of other phone bankers from all over the country who volunteer. Everyone's in the same boat. No one's a professional phone banker. You learn how to do it. And after you make a couple of calls, you really get the swing of it. And you would be shocked at how helpful it is, because as engaged as you or I might be, a lot of people out there, they're not following things as closely, or they're busy with their jobs and a million other things. And maybe they know they're supposed to vote, but they don't know the details. They don't know that they can vote earlier, or they don't know where to go, or people are confused. Are there two Senate races? Are these guys running together? Are they a ticket? You'd be surprised, and there's a lot of information to take in these days. And if you can just give people that little nudge to get them to vote, every single vote in Georgia is going to count. There's no electoral college nonsense, as we know. So, and these races are going to be close, and we really can win. And for me, I'm in California. I feel helpless. I can't vote in Georgia. I've given money, and that's great. They do need money. If you ask them what they need, the candidates, they say, give us money. And I'm sure that's true. But I feel like I wanted to do something more, and this is a way of doing that.
And this is why we had you on the show. I'm a huge fan, and a lot of our community, huge fans of your work on the TV machine. But the work you've been doing is so exemplary of exactly how we can represent whatever power we have, whatever influence we have, to utilize it for the betterment of our community. And you are so emblematic of that, because one, Georgia says, hey, don't freaking show up. We don't need you here. What we need is money, and what we need is information. I mentioned at the outset that we have a Noah Changa coming back to us, and Noah is an electoral justice reporter with Scalawag, and she's been in Georgia and reporting from the ground, and she has always said to us, we don't want outsiders coming here. Send us your money, give us your energy, and do what you can to amplify the voices that are here. And you're doing that, and that's all we can do. You have a much larger platform, and you're using it beautifully. So let me ask you this, and I want to talk personally a little bit, because even when you were talking about that, it's so touching the way you talk about these college students, and you can feel that pain of, you said, they got into this great school and they can't be there and they have to be virtual. May I ask you this, where does that empathy come from? Because that's a rare quality that, that a lot of folks don't have. They don't see the fuller picture. They don't see other people's experiences. So where in your personal history, or in what you've come to find in your voice, have you found that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if there was one particular moment. I know that I was, one issue of the many, many issues that need to be reformed in this country that really got under my skin. And I actually talked about it with the kids at Emory today, because this past Monday, I believe, was the 8th anniversary of Sandy Hook. And I think for a lot of people, that was a turning point in terms of being someone who pays attention to the news and votes, and occasionally does something more than vote, and being really politically active and and that happened to coincide, because it was about 8 years ago, with my career taking off and me getting a larger platform and trying to figure out how to use that. And it was just a natural reaction, not only to the tragedy at Sandy Hook, but even more so to Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans, I think a few months after that, blocking any type of common sense gun reform that Obama and, ironically, Biden, were trying to pass. And by all accounts, the majority of the country is in favor of some version of common sense gun reform, and some people want something more extensive, some people want something less extensive, but the statistics show that the majority of the country wants something: increased background checks. Let it be as hard to get a gun license as it is to get a driver's license. Let there be uniform rules, so that you can't be sneaky. And even if your state doesn't allow it, you can go over here and buy one. And, the fact that you can walk around anywhere in Michigan with an assault rifle and take it to the voting center that people are voting. I mean, all these crazy, irrational laws, right? And they weren't willing to do anything about it even after Sandy Hook. And it happened again, time and time again, after we would see all of these massacres take place. And for me personally, I'm gay as part of the LGBTQ community. When it happened at Pulse, that got under my skin even more, because those are my people. If I was a young gay teen in Orlando, the way I once was a young gay teen outside of Chicago, or where I went to college, or in New York where I grew up, that could have been me, And when I saw all those things happening and no response from the government, I don't understand how you don't have empathy for that. I mean, that gets under your skin. And there are Republicans getting shot too at these shootings and massacres, like we saw in Vegas at that big country music festival. How many people were shot? 500 people? I mean, something insane. And again, the federal government had no response to it. And so I think that was part of it. I'm obviously part of the gay community. So being part of the LGBTQ community makes you inherently political, whether you want to or not, because your rights and your equal representation under the law is up for debate for some reason in the halls of power, federally, statewide, citywide, And so that also in and of itself just makes you need to stand up and say something. And as my career started to develop and I got more of a platform, it just happened organically. And the more I did it, the more it felt like it was the right thing to do. And then I guess before the midterms in 2018, I realized how important those would be. And then I looked at the statistics among young people voting in the midterms, and it was something shockingly low, right? Young people just do not vote in the midterms. Even older people don't vote in the midterms often. There's just not a lot of attention usually. But with Trump in power, I thought we have to flip the House, right? I mean, it was our only chance to try to curb his power. And I started a campaign with my friends at Funny or Die, which is a production company which produces a lot of TV and film, which was started by Will Ferrell, and they produced Billy on the Street for many years. And so we're very close. And they had done some political work along the way as their company developed with the Obamas. And I did a Billy on the Street segment with Michelle Obama once, and that brought me into the Obama world, a little bit. But then when I saw 2018 and the midterms coming, I thought, well, I need to get involved and get more people to vote. And again, I started a campaign called Glam Up the Midterms with Funny or Die, which was our way of saying we want to make the midterms feel exciting and glamorous and not like homework, because they literally sound like homework and most people don't pay attention. And so I started that campaign. And then, of course, that was very much pre-COVID. We were able to go, we went all over. We did events anywhere we saw there was a swing district. We went to Detroit. I went to Detroit with Wanda Sykes and Blake Griffin and put on a show to spread the word and raise money and register voters. San Diego, Arizona, I gave a speech to the Culinary Workers Union in Vegas that actually Joe Biden was the headliner at. I did appearances on MSNBC, so a lot of social media, of course, videos, anything I could do to spread the word. And I was really shocked because Election Day 2018 came along and I was flooded with messages a lot of private messages from young people on Instagram sending me photos of themselves going to vote, and going to vote with their mom, or even older people sending me photos of themselves going to vote and saying some version of, you gave me the information I needed to inspire me to go vote today. And so I thought that's a pretty cool use of my platform, and everything kind of snowballed from there.
I mean, what's astonishing to me is that when you're a member of a marginalized community, there's so much you have to look out for your own community and your own self. So to be able to have that scope of vision, that clarity of emotion, to see other struggles and other people's strife, that's the rarity that I'm talking about, and that's what is so interesting to me and inspirational to our community as a whole, and aspirational to us all to try to act in the same manner. But there also must be an aspect of it for you that's kind of surreal. You know, from a couple of days ago, you know, dancing underneath, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of, on Mariah Carey's, when you were an elf, you were here, and
Yeah.
then there was Snoop Dogg.
Oh, Snoop.
Right?
Yes, yeah.
I was like going through all the rappers, and I cannot believe I'm blanking. So like, here you are, here's Snoop Dogg, and then 2 years or so earlier, maybe a little more, you're with Michelle Obama, you're with Big Bird. All of these moments must be so surreal. And how do you find putting on these different hats, from being in this fabulous Christmas special? Again, thanks for helping out Mariah Carey. I really hope that her career,
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
We're trying to do the same for you that you did for her. But then being with Big Bird, being with Michelle Obama, and being in all those spaces. But then you go right back. I mean, literally the same day, you go right back and you're phone banking, or you're talking to folks, and you're recruiting your famous friends and your fabulous folks to do this, that, and other thing. It must be really tiring at times, but I suppose the energy you get back from it, like seeing all those photos, must be really rewarding.
Yes, very much so. Especially that, because I just couldn't believe it, because we're out there on social media putting messages into the void. You see X number of people like the post or share the post, and you figure, okay, I guess that's something. But to actually see it inspire action in other people. And I saw it again this year leading up to Election Day in November. Obviously, we couldn't canvass and travel around and do all the things that we intended to do. But I partnered up with Swing Left because I had worked with them in 2018 too, a great organization that's looking to, help out Democrats and progressives up and down the ballot all over. And they do that work year round. So I partnered up with them. And again, I saw it, I saw the reaction online of people saying, I phone banked because of you for the first time. And I was scared, but you pressured me into it, or you guilted me into it. And I did it. And I'm so happy I did it. And now I got my friends to do it, So you see, it's a very tangible thing, and in terms of sort of putting on different hats, it's just I kind of compartmentalize it, I guess. I don't really consider myself an activist, because I think that's I think the people who are doing the really hard, dirty work on the ground year in and year out, like we're seeing in Georgia, who don't get the spotlight shined on them because they're not in Hollywood necessarily, those are the real activists to me. So I don't use the word activist to describe myself. I say that I'm an advocate, basically. I'm kind of the bridge between what they're doing and the rest of the world. The people who follow me, at least, who maybe aren't paying attention. And I can help the activists reach the audience, basically. And so that's what I do. And I guess, but what allows me to do that is to be in Mariah Carey's Christmas special and, do all of these other things. And I am an actor first, that's my job and that's what I set out to do. And then one really amazing byproduct of that is that it gave me this platform to really help out and help candidates and causes that I feel candidates that need to win and causes that need attention and money. I have a lot of people from like the New York media world following me on social media because Billy on the Street's a very New York thing. Obviously, I mean, there's fans everywhere, but it's a very New York show. I'm a native New Yorker. A lot of journalists and things following me because they like my comedy. And so even if they don't react or like a tweet or something when I'm tweeting something political or I'm saying, hey, this needs attention, I know they're seeing it. And now I don't know what they do with that, but at least they see it. And so I feel like that's something.
It's the world. It really is, and I don't blow smoke. I never talk shit. I always speak from the heart. And frankly, in fact, I shoot myself in the foot more than often than not. The work you're doing is really important. And I appreciate and respect that you want to delineate the idea of being an advocate versus being an activist. But you're putting forth tremendous energy, and I want to tell my folks that, we met in the green room before the show and we were talking about, I asked you, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to spotlight? And all you said was you want to talk about Georgia. Can we talk about Georgia? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. That's why we watched on the show. I mean, I'd love to hear behind the scenes tidbits about this or how you met Big Bird or whatever else. And did you get to meet Grover? Because that's my dream, and all those things. And maybe we'll get to that. But this is the important conversation. This is the important work. So forgive me if on this side of the screen, I will think of you as an activist.
You're allowed. I give you. You can describe me any way you want, and I appreciate that. I just want to respect the people on the ground. Those people in Georgia who have been doing the work. With Stacey Abrams and Fair Fight and New Georgia Project, and so countless groups like that. And I think that that's where we need to focus our attention. But again, I am very proud and excited to be able to get on shows like this, any, podcasts, TV shows, wherever, and try to be a voice for those people who are busy doing the work and amplify what they're doing. So,
and that was the beautiful thing is after the election and Biden had such a triumphant victory, despite what some people tried to, bully us into thinking otherwise, and still do. What was beautiful about it is so many people spotlighted the work of Black women, especially folks in Georgia doing that work. And then all of those folks that were amplified others. And it was really like the very epitome of how we need to work together and how we can unify. And that's how we're going to be victorious in so many other ways, is by our communities coming together. But I would like to, if you're comfortable, talk about your personal journey.
Sure.
And being a gay kid growing up and being probably as vocal as you are now, at least knowing what was right and what was wrong. What was that like for you growing up? And, and the reason I ask is because there are so many in our community watching who look to folks like you to see where your strength evolved from and how you found your voice with a capital V. So if you wouldn't mind, would you share some of that journey for us?
Sure. Well, I grew up in New York City. And so right away, I have a very skewed vision of the world because New York is, as we know, is not the country and not the world. But when you're a little kid, you think it is. And so I was extremely lucky in that way. I grew up in Queens, New York, and which is a very diverse borough. I think maybe the most diverse borough, and diverse racially, ethnically, religiously, economically. There are very poor parts of Queens. There are very fancy parts of Queens. I grew up like right in the middle, very like middle class. My parents were both 9-to-5 commuters. My dad worked in Brooklyn. My mom worked in Manhattan. We lived in Queens. I went to public school. A very kind of middle-class New York upbringing. My dad was raised in the Bronx. My mom was raised in Brooklyn. We were like a very New York family. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but I was very lucky in that way because, I went to high school in Manhattan. I went to a public school that you didn't have to pay for, but it was kind of a magnet school. You had to take a test to get in. It was basically for nerds. And I did well in school, and I got into that high school. And that meant I was taking the subway to high school every day, an hour and 15 minutes each way from Queens to Lower Manhattan and then back again. So I became a commuter myself at a young age. And what's great about that, everyone always, whenever I tell people I was raised in New York City, they're like, "Oh God, that is so weird. Like, how do you have a childhood in New York City? And that must be so strange. And what was it like?" And I'm always like, what are you talking about? Like, it was the greatest thing ever, especially for a gay kid. I mean, I wasn't out at the time, but I was a gay kid, the things I was interested in, I was like starring in the school musical, and I wanted to be on Broadway, and I loved to sing, and I loved entertainment. And, I showed signs of being a gay person pretty early. And so to grow up in New York, to go on the subway every day, you're seeing people from all over the world. You're seeing so much diversity that you take it for granted. You don't understand that the rest of the world is not like this, right? But it means that you're not isolated. And when I grew up and it became more and more evident to me in my head that I was gay, I would go to a Broadway show or an off-Broadway play with my parents, and I would see gay guys in the audience or gay characters on stage. The theater world is much, much, much more ahead of those types of stories than Hollywood. Hollywood's now starting to catch up in the past couple of years, but there were plays about gay guys going back to like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, when I was going to see things. And so it made me much less sheltered and isolated and much less scared of people that didn't look like me than the average kid, who grows up, and I think sometimes in a very isolated, sheltered way in our country. And as a gay person, I was able to walk around Manhattan and somewhere in my head say, those guys are gay, and they're cool, and they look happy, and like they're having a good time. And it makes you think, okay, I'm going to be fine. Like, I have nothing to worry about. So, which of course is a very privileged way to see the world at that age, especially in the 80s and 90s, because I realized that that's unusual for a gay teen to have that level of comfort so early. And my parents were like liberal New Yorkers, and, they had gay friends, and, it just, I was very, very lucky in that way. And I think that gave me a certain confidence to sort of enter a world that was actually way more homophobic, not to mention racist and classist and all the other things, than the world that I had experienced as a kid, which is kind of unusual, I think. A lot of kids grow up with homophobia because they're in a small town or a suburb or something like that. And then things get less homophobic because they move to the big city and, things get a bit friendlier. I had kind of a reverse situation to a degree where I didn't experience much homophobia as a kid or as a teenager. And I only started to experience it once I got into Hollywood as an older person, which is kind of interesting, because the entertainment industry and being an openly gay actor, there's all kinds of bullshit you have to deal with around that. So I think part of the reason, though, I had some sort of confidence is because of where I grew up and the parents I had, who were also a result of being New Yorkers themselves. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's very much a part of who I am and who I continue to be. if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And tell me, if you don't mind, there's a quote that I read, and I'm not sure if I'll get it exactly right, but is this a true quote, or is this more apocryphal? You say when you came out to your parents, your dad was somewhat surprised, and he said, "Dad, you were taking me to see Barbra Streisand in Madison Square Garden. How can you be surprised?" Is that really how it came about?
That is an act. Yes, my dad wasn't surprised. He said, "Are you?" He did the typical dad thing. He said, "Are you sure? You're in college. Maybe this is like not a permanent thing." And that's when I said, "Dad, come on." I was like, and my mom was there too. And I said, what, you've never thought about this? You know me my whole life. You know what I'm interested in. I'm literally in musical theater. I'm a musical theater major at Northwestern. You're paying for it. Like, did this never cross your mind? Because they were, more sophisticated than most, and they did say to me, they were like, "Well, yes, we discussed the possibility," which I was like, okay, now that makes more sense. Because I think they knew. And then I did say to him, "Come on, you literally took me to a Barbra Streisand concert when I was like 14, and Madonna and all these things." I was very, very lucky. They were just very supportive of all these things that other parents might have gone, "We don't know about that." And they never did that. And so, but yeah, I did kind of call them out on it. Even I was like, no, you're not giving me is this a phase? Because and I know that it's not. And then I have a half brother who's older than me, who I didn't grow up with, but it was my dad's first son from my dad's first marriage. And, we have a relationship, but we're not like super tight. Like, we didn't grow up as brothers together, and he was a bit older, and he's very heterosexual, but kind of into fashion. And so he had dyed his hair blonde, peroxide blonde. And so after I said I'm gay to my parents, like 5 minutes later, all my dad wanted to know was if my brother was gay too. And I was like, no, he is so not gay. I mean, he's obsessed with women and chasing women. I was like, he is so not gay. And I was like, why do you think he's gay? And my dad said, well, he dyed his hair blonde. And I was like, no, Dad, no, he's just trying to be trendy. But yeah, no, I was very lucky. And then sort of a defining moment for me, when I got a little older, I went to Northwestern, and I was the first person from my family to leave New York to go to college, right? Because we were New Yorkers, but no one left, And so, but I got into Northwestern, and it was a good school, and I was surprised to get in, and they had a good theater program. And so I went, and that's in Evanston, Illinois. And I thought, oh, okay, that's great, because it's right near Chicago. I'm used to cities. I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere. So that's great. And then my first week at Northwestern, this was September of 1996. Yes. My new student week. I didn't know anyone at Northwestern. None of my friends went to Northwestern. So I really didn't know people. And I went to the student dining room, one of the student, cafeterias, and I got my food, and I looked for a place to sit. And there were 12 tables full of students. And there were 11 tables of white students and 1 table of black and brown students. And I looked at that and I was like, that is very strange. I was like, seeing how segregated it was. And that's when it hit me as a kid who grew, not that New York is so perfect by any means in terms of, race relations or classism. We have our own problems, but for the most part, we live together in a version of peace. That's kind of remarkable considering how charged things are all over the world, And I grew up as a kid on the subway and just kind of seeing everyone mingling together. And then to get to Northwestern and see that, literally, I remember it vividly because I thought, what I grew up with is weird. this is how things are in the rest of the country. And this is like right outside of Chicago. And I was a young kid at the time. I didn't realize how segregated Chicago itself was, And so these are things I learned along the way. And that's when I thought, oh, this is more emblematic of the country than what I grew up in. And that was really an eye-opener.
So there are two threads I want to pull at here. One is the idea of representation. You talked about going to theater and seeing, all the shows. One of our community members said The Boys in the Band and Angels in America. There were all those great shows at that time that allowed identity to be put in the forefront and you to see possibility models, as we call it. We call them possibility models, right? Like that could be me. That could be my life. That's what I adhere to. That's my belief system. That's who I want to be. That's who I want to love. That's who I want to kiss, right? And was that important to you then when you started your career? Has that been something that you've been conscious of, being that same possibility model, being that same representation of your community so others can feel free to be themselves, to see what their life might be able to become?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I don't know. I can make guesses as to why I am the way I am in terms of how open I was about being gay in the industry from the beginning. And this is the year 2000 when I graduated college and sort of stepped into the entertainment industry to really try to make a go out of it. And especially in the comedy world. I mean, to this day, even though we're making progress, the comedy world is an extremely straight male, like alpha male, or sometimes a very straight male comedy nerd driven culture, which I always felt that I was not a part of that. Even though I loved comedy growing up, but once I started to get into that world and go to stand-up clubs, even in New York, I would always think, they're not quite ready for me, and also I don't want to be here. And yet, I had a lot of friends at the time when we graduated college. And again, this was a much different 20 years ago. This was a much different cultural environment than we're in now, which has become, there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's way more LGBTQ friendly, meaning the entertainment industry, than it was 20 years ago. But that's when I started. And I had a lot of close friends who were extremely gay in their private lives. And we would go to gay bars and gay clubs, and our whole, we were 20-year-old gay guys. A lot of our lives were about being gay for the first time. And even then, a lot of them were actors who, once we got back to New York after Northwestern, they went back in the closet professionally. And they didn't want to talk about that because they were afraid of the impact it would have on their career. And for some reason, for me, that just never felt like an option. It wasn't, though. I'd be lying to say that it was a political choice on my part, to be like radically out in the entertainment industry. I did think, I was like, well, this could end up limiting my options. But I did not want to live a lie. And I didn't want to live a weird double life. That felt just impractical to me. It felt like the pressure of that would be so awful. Plus, I kind of present as a gay person, just the way that I am. Like, if I'm talking to you, most of the time, people are like, that guy's probably gay. So, and I was fine with that. And what was I going to do? Like, all of a sudden start trying, like, consciously change my natural behavior? It just all felt like that was impractical and would not make me a happy person and would be very stressful. So a lot of my friends chose to do that. And then over the years kind of either dropped out of entertainment or came out of the closet publicly as actors. But for me, it was just, I made the decision early on, I'm just going to be myself, and hopefully talent will carry the day. And eventually, many years later, it eventually did. And, you know, I think that's cool. And so, yeah, so once I started to get a little more leverage in the industry, yeah, I mean, that it happened to coincide with a new cultural period now where you can get things greenlit that have prominent gay characters. It's still a challenge, let me tell you. It is not perfect by any means. It's still very challenging. But it is way more possible now. And so, you know, I like to make stories about gay people because that's what I relate to. You know, especially as a writer, that's the life that I know. What else am I going to write about? So, you know, in that way, it has become a big part of what I do.
It must have been really painful for you though, when you came, you know, in the year 2000, I think you said all your friends retreated. And you said it wasn't a political choice, you know, and it was an emotional choice. So it must have been lonely. It must have been somewhat scary. You know, I think that people have the wrong impression of what Hollywood and what the entertainment industry is. Because they think, oh, it's a bunch of gay folks running around and they run the industry, but it's really not. And that must have been difficult too, because there's that public perception of the liberal elite and what it means and what it represents, but it has nothing to do with reality, especially where the money is concerned.
Yes. You can be very liberal politically. You can be a gay person who is in a position of power in Hollywood. And sometimes it's the gay ones. This is changing, thankfully, because the more that you've had like the Ryan Murphys of the world show that, you know, you can be very commercial and very gay. But this is a very new thing, and everyone's still wrapping their head around it. But, you know, for many years, it was often the gay men who would say, yeah, I'm gay and you're gay, but I can't greenlight this gay story. You know, so sometimes it's the community itself, which is its own worst enemy. That's a tough conversation, but it is also true, in addition to the straight powers that be. And there are far more straight people in power than gay people also feeling that way. You know what I mean? And to this day, we've reached a point now where, because there's been this cultural revolution in many ways, racially, sexually, gender-wise, and you're seeing a lot more representation of different types of marginalized groups. On the where we are now is that on the surface, those powers that be know that they can't say certain things out loud, right? Because they're going to get in trouble. They're going to get fired. They're going to get called out on social media and all of that. So now they know there are consequences to saying certain things. But that doesn't mean they're not thinking them. And that doesn't mean that they have a bottom line economically, which they still have to look at. So these LGBT-centric shows better perform, or there won't be more of them. Or there'll be more than there used to be, but still not many, you know? And someone like Ryan Murphy, who I've been lucky enough to work with, he's a very rare entity, you know, because he can call FX and say, we're doing Pose, and it's going to star a cast of unknown Black trans women, and they're going to run the show behind the scenes, and they're going to run the show on camera, and we're going to do it. And you have to market that. And I'm telling you, it's going to be great. You know, he's got to put his foot down. You know what I mean? And that's rare. It is still a rare thing. It's becoming a little less rare, hopefully, but you know, it's rare. And so that's kind of what you're still up against.
And so let's talk about Billy in the Street, because Billy in the Street comes about, and how much of that was explicitly you wanting to be this gay character, because it's not you, you know, at most it's an exaggeration of you or a part of you, but it's not you. And, you know, and people get that confused. And that's a whole other power hour that we could have.
Yeah.
But how important was it for you on that platform, and how much resistance did you have to that for that character, because that's what it was, to be this gay icon, which is what he became. And I do want to delineate that it's a separate entity from you.
Yeah, it is. It's a character, it's a persona. It's like Borat or Pee Wee Herman, and it's in that world. And the difference is I'm not in a wacky costume when I do it. I use my own name. I didn't make up a fictional character name, because the reason I didn't do that is because I wanted everyone to know that this is real, that none of this is contrived. And so, I didn't, for better or for worse, I didn't make up like a weird name and wear a weird outfit. I just am a guy in a t-shirt and a hoodie, and it's like, hey, I'm Billy Eichner, and I'm about to hit the street. And so we start out in a very grounded, real way, so that when the crazy shit happens, it's real, that this is not a scripted thing, because it's never scripted. Yeah, I mean, it started off with a very simple idea, which was I was a young, struggling actor, writer, comedian in New York. And I thought, at that point in your life, you're very obsessed with your own career. Like, how the hell am I going to get this show business career off the ground? The odds are so stacked against me. I'm gay. I'm New York. I'm very New York, which maybe doesn't play everywhere. Like all of that stuff. And and when you're like a young, struggling actor, or at least at the time, this is before everything went digital, your headshots are of like enormous importance to you, right? Like, what photographer am I going to use, and how much should I pay, and which shot should I use, and how should I look? And it feels like the weight of the world is on your headshots, that you use. And so I decided, and I knew how absurd that was, like that we were spending so much time focusing on headshots, So the original idea was I was going to take my headshots to my dry cleaner and ask her what she thought of them, as if this is something that everyone in the community should weigh in on, right? To kind of satirize the absurdity of this and of the self-absorption of show business. And I actually never did that. We never went to the dry cleaner, but that led to saying, hey, what if we go out on the street and I stop someone in the middle of their very busy day in New York, where everyone walks around with blinders on, thinking about the million things they have to do and ignoring the fact that there's all this activity and all these people around them, so that they can get through the day, get to the subway, get to the bus, get to wherever shop they're looking to go to, get to work. And I stop them and make them talk about like Kate Winslet's Oscar chances or Meryl Streep or something like that. Because for me, it was a satire of cultural and pop cultural obsessions, right? Like, why are we taking these things? Why do I think about these things so much? I know they're not that important at the end of the day, and yet they're all consuming to me, and I guess to a lot of other people. And social media only intensified all of that pop culture focus. And so that to me was like a great satire of our country and our world's cultural obsessions. And that's how it started. And the gay thing was just inherent in it. Like, this is who I am, so this is going to be part of it. And I think at some point it was either a take it or leave it thing. Like, this is part of what Billy on the Street is. It's like, yeah, I'm going to talk about Madonna, and I'm not going to talk about the Super Bowl because I care about Madonna and I don't care about the Super Bowl, and take it or leave it. You know what I mean?
I loved watching the show evolve. One, you get more confident in the character, and two, watching the budget rise, so you could go from just running around the street to making these great mazes, and where Rachel Dratch go through these horrible things, and it was brilliant. There was so much about it, but I do want to just, for our audience, for our community, because something very New York you said, talking about taking your headshot to the dry cleaners. This is very New York. Like, I remember going off of Union Square when I went to Parsons School of Design, and there was Shabu Shabu Wok, great Chinese restaurant right there, and across the street was a dry cleaner, and up on their wall, and I'll never forget this, they had a picture of Thor, the wrestler.
Yes.
Some like third-rate wrestler, but I'm sure for Thor, that was the upper echelon of his success, that he had his picture in the dry cleaner, and you can't see a dry cleaner in the city without seeing all these pictures, and you can tell who's the neighborhood, and who signed it. So that's hilarious. I love that. So as you progressed, and then Billy became this cultural phenomenon, you started to do other projects. You ended up on Parks and Rec. You ended up doing that great show with Julie Glasner, Difficult People, which then you were able to bring in other sort of folks from the LGBTQI community as characters too, and that must have been really gratifying.
Yeah, I love that show. Julie was someone whose work I loved, and she was, when Billy on the Street, when I sold it as a TV show after having a series of viral videos, I thought, well, I can't make the whole show on my own the way I've been making the videos on my own. I'm going to need other writers, voices, producers. And Julie was one of the first people I called because I thought she was one of very few people who really understood my sensibility and could help me flesh out the show. And thankfully she did. And we really got to know each other working on that show. And we realized more and more how much overlap there was and in the parts of the entertainment industry that we loved and obsessed over, the things we watched as a kid, we're the same age. She also grew up on Long Island or just outside of the city. So there was a lot of overlap. She's Jewish. We both were raised Jewish. And then a few years into it, she had an idea for Difficult People. And she basically wanted to do a female Curb Your Enthusiasm, where instead of Larry David, it was a woman at the center, being as absurd and self-centered and ridiculous. And instead of Jeff Garlin, another straight dude playing the best friend, she would have her gay best friend, and we were basically trying to be like a sort of more toxic, more grounded Will and Grace, I guess, like a Will and Grace that New Yorkers might actually recognize. Not that I don't love Will and Grace, because I do, but you know what I mean. And she wrote it and created it. Amy Poehler got on board, and we did 3 seasons of it on Hulu. And they were so Difficult People was, interestingly, I think a few years ahead of its time in terms of inclusivity and diversity on TV in relation to LGBTQ characters and women being allowed to not, be kind of cookie cutter characters that we're used to seeing on a sitcom, and a diverse cast in terms of race and ethnicity. And we were a little bit before that became a trend and people started to talk about it and really value it. And Julie was just doing it, right? And I often think she didn't get enough credit for that because we were a little ahead of the zeitgeist there. And on top of it, it's just a very funny show. And I encourage everyone to check it out. It's still on Hulu. And it was one of their first original series that they did. And one thing I really loved about it, too, is that it just was so blunt and matter of fact about LGBT people. And we didn't have to be perfect. We were just as dumb and mean and stupid as everyone else.
That's what I wanted to add.
It was really fun.
That's exactly the question I wanted to get to. And I know we're in the after party now, Prince Be Proud. So thanks for saying after for a minute. But this is an important question, I think, because on that show, which, again, I implore people to check out. It is on Hulu still. It's brilliant. It's funny. It's acerbic. Do you ever worry about, though, representing the queer community in that way as negative characters and then playing into stereotypes and people's negative perceptions?
No, because clearly the characters on that show were not condoning their behavior. They're always getting punished for their stupid behavior. And why shouldn't, we shouldn't always have to play the martyr or the wacky two-dimensional neighbor, or like the super promiscuous, sex-obsessed club kid, or whatever sort of archetypal, really stereotypical, cliched characters that when LGBT people are allowed to be on a show, or at least allowed to be characters on a show, are often where they place us, because that's what people are used to seeing, so they keep repeating it. But we should be allowed to do everything, let us be mean and as dumb as like, any other character would be, and we're making fun of ourselves. Let's face it, our community is not perfect by any means, like there's, we're not perfect people. So we need to be able to explore that too. And as artists and creative people and people in comedy, we need to be able to send up ourselves also, and our own obsessions and hang-ups and blind spots and all of that. And I don't want to have to treat every gay character with kid gloves. That's so boring to me. And I love that Difficult People and the work that Julie did really leaned into that idea, and I think that's very liberating and also just really funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of representation, right? Is seeing the full spectrum of who the community is, who we are, and representing the worst and the best of us, so people know we are, what's that word? Human, right?
Right, exactly.
Thank you, my friend. It has been such a wonderful hour to spend with you. I cannot believe how quickly it went. I know that you want to implore people to phone bank and to support in Georgia. We have something like 18 some odd days, and believe me, they'll be very odd indeed. So we will go forth and phone bank folks, find out what you can do to share your spirit and energy. Billy Eichner, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. And if someone's just too scared to phone bank, then you can also send postcards, which is the backup plan. You can just Google send postcards to Georgia, and you'll find a billion places to do that. There's one called Vote Forward, which has been doing a whole postcard campaign. Those are effective too. So you can look into that too. Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for being here. All right, that's Billy Eichner, everybody. As we said, everything that we hoped for and more. Social Justice Power Hour, you're here every night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Please do tune in. Tomorrow night especially, we have our friend Jill Sobule coming back. You know her, two-hit wonder, I Kissed a Girl, and Supermodel. She is that and so much more. And she literally just had brain surgery. So come out and support Jill. Liz Winstead will be with us. Tammy Faye Starlight will be with us. Dar Williams, Tony Trishka, Wayne Kramer, Jane Seabury, Dar Williams, David Poe, and a bunch of other surprises. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be really meaningful and fabulous all at the same time, just like tonight, just like every night here, the Power Hour. Please be here. We love you all. Thanks for sharing community with us. Until tomorrow, 22 hours and some 55 minutes from now, be good to each other. Be good to your families, chosen or otherwise, and most especially these days as we wind out this very difficult year, be good to yourselves, my friends. Much love and respect.
We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.